Imagine waking up one morning and by nightfall, everything you own, your home, your neighborhood, your kid's school, the coffee shop on the corner, is gone. Not damaged, gone. That happened to tens of thousands of people in Los Angeles in January 2025. And now, more than a year later, many of them are still waiting to go home. My name is Andrew Sanchez, and welcome to Ashes and Answers, the LA Fire Recovery Project. Let's start with what we know. On January 7th, 2025, exceptionally strong Santa Ana winds swept through the Los Angeles region. Combined with the long, brutal dry season, those conditions turned sparks into catastrophes almost instantly. Within days, a total of 12 fires had broken out across the LA area, but 2 became defining tragedies for this city. The Palisades Fire in Pacific Palisades and the Eaton Fire in Altadena. When the smoke finally cleared, the numbers were staggering. 31 people lost their lives. More than 16,000 structures were destroyed. Over 50,000 acres burned. Property and capital losses reached an estimated $131 billion, a figure calculated by researchers at UCLA. To put that in perspective, some analysts have called this the costliest urban wildfire event in American history. Governor Newsom declared a state of emergency within hours. A presidential major disaster declaration followed. Federal agencies, state departments, the National Guard, everyone mobilized. And then came the hard part. The part nobody talks about enough. The recovery. We are now more than 16 months removed from those fires. And while there has been real progress made, the honest picture is one of a community still very much in crisis. Here's what the cleanup has looked like. The process was divided into 2 phases. Phase 1 had the EPA going in to remove household hazardous waste, things like chemicals and batteries. Phase 2 sent the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to clear structural debris. As of early 2026, nearly 12,000 lots have been cleared. That is significant. That is real work being done. But cleared land is not a rebuilt home. And this is where the story gets painful. A survey conducted in May of 2026, the 5th quarterly report by a fire recovery nonprofit called the Department of Angels, found that nearly 40% of fire survivors have either run out of their temporary housing insurance payments or expect to very soon. That number is the highest recorded since tracking began. More than 2 out of 3 survivors are still not home. Think about that. Over 500 days after the fires, and 2 out of 3 families have not returned. The organization's president, Miguel Santana, put it plainly. He said, "This is no longer about short-term disruption. This is actually prolonged displacement." And the financial gap is enormous. Homeowners who lost everything estimate they would need, on average, $660,000 more than what their insurance is expected to pay in order to rebuild. For those who lost their entire home, that average gap climbs close to $850,000. 1 in 5 survivors has already exhausted their insurance displacement coverage entirely. 4 in 10 have taken on debt. Almost half have wiped out their savings. For lower-income households, the situation is even more dire. Among those earning $50,000 or less, nearly 80% said they didn't think they could afford housing for even 3 more months once their coverage ends. And renters, who are often the most vulnerable and the most overlooked, have faced the worst outcomes. An estimated 100,000 Altadena residents were displaced by the Eaton fire alone. Among renters in that community, almost 75% still don't have permanent housing. There's another layer to the story that deserves its own conversation: insurance. 70% of insured survivors have reported delays, denials, or underpayments from their insurers. 70%. That's not a glitch in the system. That's the system, failing the people who paid into it. California's insurance commissioner has faced enormous public pressure and criticism for not doing enough to hold insurers accountable. Fire survivor advocacy groups have demanded action, including freezing rate hikes while survivors are still waiting to be made whole. Meanwhile, Southern California Edison, whose equipment is under investigation in connection with the Eden fire, launched a wildfire recovery compensation program in November of 2025 to provide compensation for property damage, injuries, and loss of life. Investigations into the cause of that fire are still ongoing, with major legal and financial implications for how insurance losses are ultimately distributed. The bottom line? Survivors who did everything right, who bought homes, paid for their premiums, followed the rules, are still fighting. And that's not okay. Now, to be fair, there has been action. The state of California has committed $2.5 billion in immediate disaster relief. Governor Newsom suspended certain permit and environmental review requirements to help survivors rebuild faster. In January 2026, the state announced funding for nearly 1,000 new affordable rental homes in communities across LA County, with priority access for fire survivors. FEMA's continued temporary housing assistance program is still available for qualifying survivors. Community organizations like the Eden Fire Survivors Network, which now connects more than 10,000 survivors and allies, have helped unlock more than $100 million in delayed insurance payouts in its first year alone. These efforts matter. People are fighting hard for this community. That deserves to be acknowledged. But here's what I want to leave you with today. Recovery is not a press conference. It's not a check signed on camera moment. Recovery is an 11-year-old girl named Ariel, living with her grandparents and her little siblings, still waiting to know where home is going to be. It's a family in Altadena who watched their house burn on the news, live, and 16 months later, still don't have answers from their insurance company. It's a person who worked their whole life to own something, and now owes more than they ever imagined just to get back to zero. Recovery is slow, recovery is unequal, and recovery for too many people in Los Angeles has stalled. This podcast exists because these stories need to be told beyond the 1-year anniversary headlines, because the cameras moved on, but the people didn't get to. If you want to help, organizations like LA Works, Direct Relief, the California Community Foundation, and My Safe LA are actively working with survivors now. I'm Andrew Sanchez. Thank you for listening to Ashes and Answers.